All right, this is the parking committee meeting, 6:32. I am Sheila Vaccaro with Lisa Dorsey and Bernie Flynn. I'm going to call the meeting to order and ask for any comments, suggestions, or petitions by residents regarding non-listed items. No one's here. So let's go on to 3A, the Garage Management Monthly Report.
Freeman with Reef. So numbers wise, we are, continuing to trend upwards. Versus prior year is kind of a, hit or miss thing because of COVID. If we go back to 2019, we were actually looking, for the month, we're 16% over what we were in 2019, which was a very normalized year. Actually, it's one of the better years. So we're 16% over that with, both garages. Year to date, we're about 4% over on the revenue side. So things are definitely trending upwards. We picked up close to 30 monthly parkers between last month to this month. That's just people reactivating their accounts, and we continue to see that trend, and everything keeps pushing forward. We're set to power wash in the garages, and knock on wood, things have been relatively quiet. We have some additional staff on the weekends just to help with any additional flow of traffic to make sure that gates aren't broken, things of that nature. On the expense side, we are higher than last year and a little bit higher than budget. Predominantly, that's actually, we had put some things on hold, and from a repair and maintenance perspective, some related to equipment, a few other things. So we're a little bit on that end of things, and credit card fees have gone up with revenue going up. So from that perspective, we're still doing well. Things are still, trending well, and we anticipate that to continue on as the year goes, barring any setbacks, which we hope not to have any. On a revenue collection standpoint, again, the trend continues to, show upward ticks. We had a little down, little downturn in May, but June came right back up again, and we continue on, and we anticipate, again, the numbers to keep going on through the end of the year. We'll hit a slower period as we get into November, December, the holiday months a little bit. But again, with the Christmas parade back, things like that, it'll actually help us as some of these events come back. Tickets are showing, similar trend. Chestnut Street has picked up a little bit more. Bicentennial tends to be a little flatter. From a space perspective, it's maxed out almost every day, so it tends to be flat. But revenue-wise, we're still doing well. They're working on the facade at Bicentennial, so that's continuing on. And then from a transient revenue growth, month over month, we're up 2.6% at Bicentennial. We're up about 15% at Chestnut Street. So we're definitely seeing things swing back towards Chestnut Street. We had seen a little bit of a lull there. But, again, everything's trending well. The, revenue's coming back. Martin was actually kind enough. He was giving me some statistics and, explaining that, well, not that I don't know, but just how many monthly parkers we're doing on a daily basis, which is about 500 parkers a day. On a monthly basis, we're doing 13 to 14 transient parkers, 13 to 14,000, not 13 to 14, 13 to 14,000 transient parkers. So, we've definitely picked back up again. And, from a vehicle parking perspective, we're in the 30, 40, 50,000 vehicle range. So things are definitely back. They're continuing to grow. We're over 2019, which is definitely a good thing. And, we anticipate that trend to continue. Any questions, comments?
So Patrick, who just left, asked me about the comparison of the monthly parkers to the transient parkers in the garage. Should we as a borough be trying to encourage more transient parking usage of, what are your thoughts on that?
I think, actually, I think we're at a very good spot right now in terms of, how things are sitting. I mean, for a long time, there was a huge parking crunch. Things seem to have settled a little bit as, the years have gone on. Some of that is, the newer generation, not as many cars, so all sorts of things like that. Monthly parking is, is the base of any parking operation. It's, that's what keeps you going month in and month out. You get money up front, whether they come in one day a month, whether they come in 20 days a month. The transient's a little less, predictable. And so therefore, I think we're at a good, point right now. We're typically not at capacity every single day. Especially not at Chestnut Street. We don't have available capacity there. So, at this point, we're still, from our perspective, we're continuing to push for monthly parkers because, again, it is a base that, keeps us, kind of pays for everything. And the transient's a little bit of gravy on top of that. And, the transient tends to come in at different periods. You know, it'll be more nights, weekends, you get in your transient business, you know, your monthlies tend to be Monday through Friday daytime. Not that you don't get transient business on during those periods, but they kind of level out pretty well. So at this point, we're at a good flow. You know, could that change in 2 months, 3 months? Of course it could. But right now, yeah, I think we're pretty even, you know, at a pretty good level point, you know.
A nice sweet spot, a nice
you.
balance. Thank you so, I appreciate it. Thank you. We good? Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Have a good night.
All right, and moving on to the director's report.
Thank you very much. I'm going to be real brief. I don't have a presentation for you all tonight, but I wanted to follow up on Forrest's comment about the financials for parking. I usually talk about the big three revenue items: tickets, meters, and garages. So altogether, we are about 8% ahead of budget through half the year, which is very good news. We're about on target with issuing parking tickets for budget. We're $2,000 over budget on that for the revenue. Parking meters is slightly over budget so far. It's almost 6%. We're getting 6% more parking meter revenue than we expected by this time this year. Where we really seem to be performing well is versus budget is in garages net revenue. So we have been beating that one pretty well. We're up 17% for the year on our garages because we're doing well in the garages, meters, and on budget with tickets. That's why we're at about plus 8%. That's about $170,000 more than what we would expect out of these line items as of today, which is about $2.1 million. So those are good trends. We don't anticipate that falling off. We don't have any big projects coming up in the summertime. I'm less confident about predicting behaviors and futures these days. But typically we do, as Forrest say, have a slowdown of transient revenue visitors to the borough in the summertime. And I think people are getting out and taking vacations more now than they were in 2 prior years. I will be taking a vacation next week, my first one in 3 years. So those things are happening. So I do expect July and August to slow down a little bit and then reignite when students come back to town. And that's the normal pattern of revenue in the borough having to do with meters and with parking garages. We are in the midst of developing a visualization of our parking meter revenue. It just went live today. I don't have a link for you to share with you, but you can see that growth you can see how much the students affect and having those times a year that they're in session that we do have higher revenue in the borough for parking meters. 2 other things we're working on. We will have more conversation discussion with our partners at InPark about new payment technologies for the garages that will reduce the amount of problems we have. Right now, we have a magnetic strip system that is more prone to malfunction. We're thinking about going to a visual detection system where we can issue print tickets instead of magnetic strip tickets. And we're also nearing completion of an agreement with the bid to talk about the sharing of revenue and the sign maintenance. They've made an offer, and I kind of like where they're going with it. So we should have something for the committee next month. And those are the items I have to talk about, independent of everything else that's on our agenda tonight.
Then we move on to C, regulation of parking at 200 Block East Market Street.
Yeah, I think our recommendation is coming down to thinking about installing single space meters on that 200 block of East Market. We want to do a survey. We haven't compiled the information yet. I'm going to need Hector's help with that, of the residences that are on that block and whether or not they have off-street parking, because certainly metering those spaces in front of those residences would be an issue. So we should have a fully vetted proposition to you by next month with that.
The action items, A, approve the June 2020 Parking Committee meeting minutes. Approved. B, approve parking agreement amendment 6 and the County of Chester for 60 parking spaces in the Chestnut Street Garage at $90 a month per space, according to the terms and conditions of the daytime permits for the garage September 1st through August 31st, 2023. Approve one-year extension of parking management agreement with Imperial Parking with a 3% management fee increase. Approve one-year fire system inspection and maintenance contract for Chestnut Street Garage with Johnson Controls beginning July 21st, 2022 for $2,675. Good. Approve amendment to Bicentennial Garage lease agreement, Borough of Westchester and Eclat, to alter terms and conditions of the option term.
This is a little unorthodox to be sitting in a public meeting and discussing terms of a lease negotiation, but this is what happens when a government is a landlord. So what the tenant has asked for, and there is no immediate urgency to this. We can table this to next month and you can see the full, that's what I would recommend, tabling it to next month so you get the full text of the amendment in front of you. But essentially what the owner is looking for, the tenant is looking for, this is a long-standing tenant. It's been in that space a long time, by the way, has made a lot of investments in that space that are really unique to his customers, his business, what he does. So he likes it here. And I believe him when he tells me that. What they're looking for is to slide another 1-year renewal option in between the series of 1-year renewals that exist in the current lease and the 5-year renewal that kicks in. So if we did not agree to this, at the end of August 2023, the tenant would have the option then to enroll in a 5-year renewal. So he'd be on the hook for 5 more years of rent at the rent schedule. But he's looking to slide in one more 1-year renewing option between that last 1-year renewing option and the onset of the 5-year renewal. So the only issue for council to think about is, are you in a hurry to lock this tenant up for 5 years?
I like this tenant a lot. I want him to stay. I like that business. I think it's very valuable asset in our borough. So I want to look into this more and understand really what we're talking about, what his requests are, and I would be for tabling it, but I'd like to hear your thoughts.
I guess my question, Mr. Metrick, is do we know what's motivating him to want to make that adjustment, that change?
No.
I don't know what's motivating him, but I do know this, that under the previous administration, he was not being heard, and he was not being addressed. His concerns about the building and the space were not being addressed. This was prior to Mr. Metrick. Now he seems, because I called him one day and caught an earful, and that was before I was mayor. However, I spoke to him a couple of weeks ago, and he does love Westchester, and he does want to do a lot of things here in Westchester and has a lot of ideas. I think what he needs at this point is to be seen and heard by the current administration, which he felt like it didn't happen before. And so I think if we're able to work with him, he'll work with us. That's my thought.
Thank you.
So in essence, yeah, all he wants to do is extend it one more year before he, at the same current price, before he gets involved in the 5-year. It's a no-brainer, you know, so.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. I just, the thought that comes to mind is he looking to move? Is that why he needs the 1-year extension? I know. It's a gamble. Just had to say it out loud. Yeah, I get it.
Well.
So the rent table in the Second Amendment goes, it's about a 2% increase year over year, out to 2036.
Acai bowl, place.
That's changed 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I don't have any concerns with it. I'm just trying to understand what the motivation is. And is it something that, we need to give a little bit more thought to?
yeah,
Like I said, there's no urgency. I do recommend the committee table this. I can share with you a little bit of my professional experience to date when my prior job as a borough manager in Montgomery County. We owned a 35,000 square foot building that used to be a school, but then became owned by the borough, and the borough was able to rent it out. So I got very familiar with commercial leasing and what goes into that process. And in that town, we did hire a broker to represent us, to close deals and to manage the property. And I couldn't have done it in that situation without that professional assistance. Here's different. But what I did learn is that you need, if you have a vacancy in one of these 3 spaces, you really need to know what the market is. And I am not a commercial real estate broker. I don't know what the market is. But I do know that when you hire someone to help you market a space, they charge you pretty hefty upfront fee. It's usually a diminishing 531 over a 5-year period, 5% of the rent, 3% of the rent, 3% of the rent, 1. They're getting their finder's fees. Plus, on top of that, if you want them to manage your property, they're charging you a percentage of your rent on top of that. Plus, when you negotiate a new lease, unless you were able to find somebody who was really into making very high-end refined chocolate, you're going to have to go into that store and retrofit it for the new tenant. And they're going to want those retrofits to be negotiated into their lease agreement. So you're going to pay for that in that first 12 months backwards. So there is a lot of wisdom in maintaining your current tenants, but not at a price that cuts you down at cuts your own knees off. You have to be aware of the market. I'm not aware of what commercial real estate goes for in the borough, but I think there is wisdom in keeping your existing tenants happy.
well, that's where we lean on the bid, because they have a business attraction, which I'm a member of the business attraction committee. It's all over the place. The size of the building, for example, the new space at 44 West, that guy's going to pay $20,000 a month roughly to put a spaghetti, pizza, beer, place across from Sedona. And that was part of the public record that we were negotiating with them. So $20,000 is a lot of money, a month. Down where our building was at the Classic Diner, we were paying $3 a square foot. So it's all over the place wherever it is. And if the Choco Factory decides to leave, in the front of the store, he has just display cases that are refrigerated. But everything that behind that door, he's not leaving because that's his entire, Willy Wonka back there, the chocolate factory. It's amazing what he does in that small space. So it'll be empty. There won't be anything left in there to retrofit anything. So, but I would hate to see him leave because he's a quality vendor in the borough.
Let's just table that and look at it further. Is there other business tonight? Then this meeting